Welcome to Voice Rising with Kara Johnstad. Enjoy weekly conversations with leading luminaries, pioneering visionaries, singers, poets, musicians, and sound healers as we explore the profound role our voice plays on the path to self-realization and global enlightenment. The internationally acclaimed singer, composer, author, healer, recording artist, voice expert, creator of Voice Your Essence, and founder of the School of Voice, Kara Johnstad uses her extraordinary spiritual gifts to empower others. Everything in this world vibrates. Everything has a frequency. A pioneer in the field of voice work and transformational songwriting. Her breakthrough methods are helping thousands of people worldwide fine-tune their body-mind-spirit system and unlock the energetic frequencies of limitless creativity, health, and abundance. Share your voice, ask your questions, join in the conversation. Receive life-changing, positive transformation and rise together to create a sound world. And here's your host, Kara Johnstad.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another enlightening episode of Voice Rising, where we explore the transformative power of sound, music, and the human voice. Today, I am very happy to introduce a remarkable author and philosopher whose journey into the realm of sacred sound has led him to extraordinary revelations. Not long after completing his PhD in philosophy at Columbia University, Michael Grosso had a profound awakening in the heart of Greenwich Village, New York. It was there that he encountered the captivating presence of Swami Nada Brahmananda, a renowned master of Tan music and sound yoga. Swami Nada's mastery of vibration and his supernatural abilities left an indelible mark on Grosso's life. Inspired by his experience, Grosso embarked on a transformative path, delving deep into the teachings of Swami Nada and immersed himself into the vibrant underground arts and music scene of the 1970s New York City. Today, Michael joins us to share the wisdom that he acquired from Swami Nada Brahmananda, and he sheds light on the sacred yoga of sound and its profound potential to heal, enlighten, and guide us through the challenges of our time. So sit back, get a tea, relax, open your hearts and mind as we embark on this beautiful sonic journey together. Welcome to Voice Rising. Michael, I'm so glad that you're here with me.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be meeting you here right now.
Yeah, right. Global heart, global mind. We are all over the place. I'm in Europe. You are in, what did you say, Charlottesville in the States?
Charlottesville, right, on the east coast of USA, yeah.
Beautiful. I have your new book very close to me on my desk, and it's called Yoga of Sound, The Life and Teachings of the Celestial Songman Swami Nada Brahmananda. And you really captivate the not only so much wisdom is held in this book, but you're in New York City, in the village. It's the 70s. Why don't we begin, if you don't mind, with you painting the scene for us? You got jazz clubs, underground music. Where were you at that time in your life? This is a real life story that you're pulling on in this book. So how did you meet also this celestial sound man, as you call him, or Swami Nada Brahmananda, and what was it like?
Yeah, well, I was actually very close to getting my PhD in philosophy, and I was at Columbia, and the book that I wrote about, the Phaedo, in that dialogue of Plato's, I was struck by the fact that Socrates in prison and having a dialogue with his colleagues announces the fact that he had been experiencing a dream for many years, a recurrent dream, which expressed itself in different ways, but the message was, make music, Socrates. And Socrates' response all of the time was, well, that's okay, but my art form is philosophy. Philosophy is the greatest form of music that I know of. And that's understandable to say that. This is a guy that had no apparent interest in the arts as such. However, the dream kept coming back and indicating he was missing the point. So finally, we're told that in his very last days in prison, before he's about to be executed, he made all kinds of attempts to put, for example, one of the Aesop stories to music and make a song out of it. And he even describes himself as trying to dance in prison in order to make sure that he hadn't sort of left something out, and that the messages he was getting from his dreams, which he thought were from the divine realm, he wanted to be sure that he did the right thing, even though he didn't quite understand it. So he didn't apparently get that music itself should be, and the arts, not just music, but the muses, all of the muses, all of the arts, with their sensory life and emotion and meanings, should have been a major part of his philosophy. So I'm waiting there in New York City to get. I learned about this gentleman, a musician, through a friend of mine who was a psychotherapist. So I got his address and knew where he was. So I'm thinking, really, I should check this out because I myself had an interest in dreams, rather in music, and I had an unusual dream, an encounter. Actually years before that event that I'm now describing. It was a dream in which involved John Coltrane, and it wasn't a dream. It was an actual experience that I had in the village, Greenwich Village, where I was living at the time, in which I looked out the window while I was listening to John Coltrane's Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, a really wildly intense piece of music. So I go to the window. We were living on the top floor, I and my girlfriend, on the top floor, 6th floor in Greenwich Village on Bedford Street. So I go to the window as we're listening to the music, and I'm sort of pounding my foot just in the rhythm. And I go look out the window. It's 11:30 at night, April 23rd, a beautiful spring night. And I'm going with my foot, making music with the rhythm of Coltrane. And I look up into the sky, and suddenly a bunch of lights appear out of nowhere and start moving in rhythm with the music. And I'm sort of pulsing with that, this spectacle of dazzling lights dancing in the sky to the music of John Coltrane. And then it hits me, maybe 2 seconds later, what the heck am I looking at?
Yeah.
And so I invite my friend Jane. She comes to the window, raises the window, makes sure it's not some kind of illusion. She saw the same thing. And these lights, which this is my one and only great UFO experience, danced around for a while, and then they shot down to the right where I was able to follow them visually, and the lights perched on top of the dome of Our Lady of Pompeii, the church, Catholic church in Greenwich Village, still there, and it pulsates there as though it's communicating to the two of us. Then it shoots back to where it was, dances around in the sky some more, and then heads north, and in a nanosecond disappears over the Empire State Building. Well, that blew our minds, and we said, well, let's go up the roof, because we were living on the top floor. Yeah. And sure enough, there's a third guy there. His name was Louis, and he was a young drummer whom I had just turned on to John Coltrane. And the first thing he says, "Did you see that?" So 3 people witnessed this thing.
Yeah.
And this had a powerful effect on me because it's a couple of days before I'm about to become an official PhD in philosophy.
Yeah.
And I interpreted this event as a message from God knows where and how and what. I don't know what it was, and no one knows yet what UFOs are all about. But it seemed to be saying to me, "Okay, pal, you're about to become a PhD, very wise. Explain this. Explain us." And of course, I couldn't and haven't, but it's been a part of my life. Anyway, that got me into thinking that, and the Socrates story in my dissertation, which fascinated me, that he should, on his deathbed, be told that he's been missing music in his life. I came to the conclusion I had to make music a part of my life. And I already was taking lessons in a flute lesson from a student of mine. I was teaching already before I had my PhD. And so that's how and then several years later, already into music, my friend Elida Sherman, who had already met Swami Brahmananda, turned me on to him. And that's how I went and got involved with this extraordinary man. And I can remember, if I may, I'll just say this. The first thing he ever said to me when I stepped into his little office there on 24th Street and 7th Avenue, it's sort of a temporary place where he was staying. And the first thing he says to me, he says, mind control, with a little accent, is life. And then he said, and rhythm is music, you see. That was just the first sentence. But the whole idea of mind control, combined with the arts, was a very, very powerful sort of a message. And so anyway, that was the launch. And I had my first lesson with the Swami that day with that opening message. And from there on, you know, I knew him, I would say, for about 2 years. And I took lessons with him. I followed him when he made presentations in different parts of the country. And I started recording the lessons I had with him on my tape recorder. And when they were over, I went home and I typed them out. And I never dreamed that I was going to write a book about it. Because this was in late 1970s. And had no intention of writing a book. It's only recently that I started to look at the material I had, and I said, "Hey, this might be of interest to people." And by luck, I got a contract for this book in one day. And but it took me a couple of years to get the book published, by the way.
Yeah.
So here we are. And
so what are some valuable lessons that Swaminatha taught you about mind control?
Well, what he taught me was the importance of being constantly aware of what's going on inside my mind, and noticing the feeling and the fluctuations. But above all, what he taught me was that music is one of the most powerful ways of gaining control over the mind.
Yeah.
And for example, even today, on an average day when I feel a little anxious or a little uptight for one reason or another, I immediately take a deep breath. Everyone knows this, right? You can control your emotions, but I combine it with music. So I will start. One of the things I learned from Nada Brahmananda, I remember I would practice on his tabla, and I couldn't afford. I was a poor student then, and I couldn't
in New
afford
York
to buy it.
City, right? I mean, New York
Right.
City is quite pricey, right? So yeah, student in New York, going to Columbia, right?
Exactly, and I couldn't buy. So I just made an excuse later on, after a couple of lessons, that I hadn't purchased any drums because I couldn't afford it. And he looked at me and laughed. He said, "You don't need an instrument." He said, and then he started just tapping on the table, and then he started tapping on my head rhythmically. That you can make rhythm, and you can practice mind control anywhere, anyhow, and you don't need any particular musical instrument. And here's the other thing I want to share with you and listeners. I had this dream of Nada Brahmananda, in which I didn't know who it was before I met him. It was a man, a smallish, funny-sounding man, and he came up to me and said, "I want to teach you music." And then he said, "But there are no instruments."
Mm.
And I always puzzled about that. And then eventually I learned, as in the example I just gave a moment ago, when I told him I didn't have an instrument, he always emphasized that's not the point. You can do the counting, the rhythm. The whole thing is a mental thing.
Yeah.
And if you don't have an instrument, you can still make music mentally, with your body, with your moods. And moreover, music and the muses are everywhere, on all the art forms, in conversation, in making paintings. I'm a painter too, by the way, and it's all about rhythm of colors and patterns and so forth. So, but the fact was that in this dream, I was told that I didn't need an instrument, and that was the message he kept hitting over and over again. What he said was, "You are the instrument. You yourself are the instrument that you are playing." And that, of course, was a completely transformative idea of what the muses are all about, what music and the muses are all about. It's about changing our lives. Yeah, we use instruments, we sing, we have horns, we have flutes and all the rest. But the real thing is the human soul and the human body. That is the musical instrument par excellence. So all these things I have absorbed and have made a big difference to the way I've been living ever since that time, actually. And it's had a profound impact on me.
And it's probably this understanding that you are the instrument that you can play, but you're also being played through in a way, right? If you think about, you used to do flute, and then suddenly you're singing, or you're whistling, or you're even, I mean, the rhythm of your heartbeat and your eardrums are right there, right?
Exactly. And of course, the key thing is the role of harmony. Yeah. And when we take the concept of harmony, we can immediately see that music has implications for the art of living, because all of life is a constant interaction with one thing or another, which can be either harmonious or disruptive, beautiful or ugly, right? It's constant. Every moment of our lives, from the weather to the people we meet, to the moods we encounter in ourselves, we're constantly confronted with the option to construct out of our experience something beautiful, harmonious, melodic, expressive, meaningful, versus the opposite. That's we're made that way, free agents, despite the brain scientists who sometimes tell us that's nonsense. I don't believe that. We are free to shape. We're not absolutely free, but we have significant capacities to alter our lives, alter our experience, and reshape our very existence. Right. And that, to me, is one of the biggest lessons I learned from Nada Brahmananda. And we can do it in a way that's beautiful and rhythmic and soulful. And it doesn't have to be a harsh, beating down on the self. Although sometimes you do have to be disciplined. I mean, Nada Brahmananda, for example, did all kinds of amazing practices that really demanded a great deal of self-discipline, which can be a little awkward or painful, but without it, we're not going to evolve very well. We need to sometimes get down on ourselves, right, and do what we have to do.
I think the word discipline too. I believe it stems from the word disciple. So there's a beautiful. It's a practice. It's a prayer. It's a surrender. It's a being committed to something. Right. It's not. It's not horrific. It's beautiful.
Right. Exactly.
Discipline can be something. Commitment. That's very beautiful. You write in your book, Michael. I'm gonna quote a little bit of your book. You're talking about the use of vibrations in the art of healing, and especially about wordless vibrations that echo notes of the raga. And you write, first the notes are sung. So now we're going from. I mean, even a melody is going to be rhythmical, right? So you write first the notes are sung, sa ri ga, then ah. So going into tone. Every song begins in this way with a melodic pattern or raga, and then the tan. Every song is preceded by a long internal vibration, barely audible and puzzling to the uninitiated listener. The silent mental act is said to vibrate in the etheric plane, creating, he once said, and that's Swami Nada, a playground for the celestials, which I think is very beautiful. The thought that, well, for me it was beautiful. The thought when we align, the music that we're creating, the choice if we're going to go into harm or harmony, and then we start going into that silence, but a silence that is singing, a silence that is filled with music, then it's a playground for the celestials. And there you come back to your idea that we are co-creating our reality, or as we breathe, as we sing, as we talk, as we walk.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and one has to be simply. You have to remind yourself of so many important things. It's so easy to forget. I mean, how often? I mean, do we get caught up in a bad mood? Or something happens and just throws us off. And really, there are options, there are possibilities, there are things we can do if we're reasonably, in possession of ourselves and reasonably emotionally balanced, that we can take steps to alter and reshape our very mode of being and the quality of our subjectivity. But it's so easy to forget and to get caught up in the negativity. So that's why it's important to have a teacher or something to remind you. Maybe not a teacher, maybe a picture. I have a picture of Nada Brahmananda, several of them just lying around. And every time I look at him, I say, get straight, Mike. Don't let that little thing bother you that you heard on the news this morning. It's mind control is life, he says, and it's right there in front of us. From every minute of the day, we're with ourselves, and we have that option to either, creatively explore and even sometimes discipline ourselves, or yield to the toxic atmospheres and influxes that are around us and suffer the consequences.
So what would you say, Mike, is the difference between the entertainment biz or the music industry as most people know it and the path that you experience with Swami or with Yoga of Sound, or that is available to everyone, right? I think it is available. I think that's what's inspiring about your book, is that everybody can have.
I say so, and I agree with you completely. You see, and here's where I had a slight disagreement with Nada. He told me stories and insisted from his point of view, and I couldn't disagree with him, that music is a high art, and he had no interest, or I would say, and no real respect or awareness of the potentialities of what we call entertainment. Mm-hmm. He tried to, but I think the reason is he associated in his raps popular music with smoking dope and, like he used to say, naked ladies. Mm-hmm. I don't think he saw too many naked ladies, in his wandering about New York. But he associated entertaining music with activities that were not devoid of spiritual value. Mm-hmm. But I disagreed with him on this, and occasionally I did disagree, always with great respect. My feeling is that anybody can, in any number of ways, not just through music, can attune to the idea that he was promoting, that we can tune into the richer part of the psychic apparatus and ordinary music. I mean, I myself love all kinds of music. I don't love every music that I hear, but all kinds of music.
Yeah.
Within the different kinds, of course, I have my favorites. I happen to, be a jazz person, mm-hmm. and I love Renaissance and medieval music, which is an odd combination, but that's me. Yeah, but whoever you are, whatever kind of music or whatever kind of art or whatever kind of hobby or love that you have, could be anything, absolutely anything, can be converted into a spiritual practice that can enhance our lives. That's my view. And I think that Nada Brahmananda would, in the end, really agree with me. I mean, because he wasn't a fanatic, but he did have a training in classical music. And, he told me a story of a Hindu king who disliked people who got too excited and showed their enthusiasm when listening to sacred music. Mm-hmm. And he stopped them by threatening. He said, anybody moves tomorrow, starting when we listen to music, will be hanged. And I don't know. And the Nada Brahmananda tells the story, and he says the next day, this famous musician comes in and performs, and the whole audience is like stone. That was the word that Nada. Yeah. And the guy was he couldn't understand what's wrong. No enthusiasm, no response. So that's just a point to illustrate that in some traditions, music is treated in a very, very special, sacred way. And okay, fine. But the options for using music and the muses, broadly speaking, should be available in all shapes and forms. And we ought not to be paralyzed by ideas of, perfectionistic ideas. But let's just take it whatever way it comes, whatever way our spirits can respond to things. It seems to me valid, and we should encourage it, not discourage it with, that kind of division.
Preconceptions or division. Right, exactly. Micah, we're going to take a very short break, and then we're going to come back and talk more about your book.
Okay.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
With happy clients all over the world, Kara Johnstad knows that your voice is the missing link to more authenticity, abundance, creativity, and health. An internationally acclaimed voice expert, Kara's breakthrough methods have helped thousands of people successfully heal their voice wounds and extinguish the story of self-doubt and shyness forever. Join in group trainings, attend online sessions, Schedule one-on-one time and invite Kara to work with your organization and community. Get started today. Go to www.karajohnstad.com and receive a special guided meditation designed to fine-tune your inner voice and welcome you on the voice journey.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Host your show on AM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on AM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for
summer break because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, dear listeners, to Voice Rising. If you're finding inspiration in our conversation with Michael Grosso today, we at OMTimes Radio and Voice Rising would love it if you took a moment out to leave us a review on the major streaming sites and subscribe to the show, because your support helps us to bring more excellent interviews into the world and to deepen the conversation on the power of sound. So now welcome back, Michael. I want to talk to you a little bit about singing. So Swami Nada said to you, or at least you share this in your book, and I thought it was lovely, that they say in India they have a word for a house not singing God's name, which is cemetery.
Right.
And he said, wherever there is singing is heaven. So talk to us about your experience with your voice, with singing. And I'm just curious, do you have your own chanting practice, or do you find yourself singing while you're cooking? Or, how does singing help you transform what you're talking about before, the toxic to the powerful medicine? Yeah.
Well, that's a very interesting question, because lately I've been thinking about the fact that I've done a lot of things. One of them is I have a book of poetry that I mean to publish. Now, poetry is, I've been writing poetry on and off, and now and then I publish, but it's not been a major concern of mine. And so, but I am recently getting back into it, or more into poetry. So I have been reading out loud and listening to my voice, and thinking that I might start reading some of my poems and get them out there online. And so the whole idea of the music of language is, apart from music itself, I mean, the music just of language is very important to me. But even in prose, when I write a lot of essays, and I have a blog, and I write books, of course. But I'm very conscious of the fact of imagery, rhythm, style, but not so much the voice, but until recently, and realizing that we're becoming a culture where anybody can get out there online and have his or her voice heard. So that strikes me as like an opportunity to explore the voice in ways that until now I frankly wasn't thinking that, but that's one thing, one area. But I have to say that to respond to your question, my explorations of voice are also taking place in my other art form that I've been practicing pretty much throughout my academic life. I have a nightlife as a painter, and and the more I get into music, the more it turns me on to want to paint, because I see the rhythms and color, tone, all of these are aspects of different media, whether it be, writing a prose essay or a poem or the dialogue in a play, or even the rhythm of prose, philosophical prose. I mean, with a writer, let's say, like Nietzsche, who was an artist as well as a philosopher. So I am interested in promoting the idea of music understood as the muses, as the universal language that we all need to learn in terms of living our everyday lives, even diet. I mean, it's a big thing with Nada Brahmananda, and it's a big thing in our culture. I mean, people are suffering from obesity, or they're eating the wrong kinds of foods. But every aspect of our existence can be seen through a musical lens, as it were. And because the underlying notions of rhythm and harmony and melody are pervasive and have their counterparts in other media beside sound. So that's what I'm trying to do. Since I'm not really a musician, although I've learned how to play the flute, and I have a problem with one of my fingers, which I'm going to deal with pretty soon, so I can get back to playing the flute. But my main idea as a teacher of philosophy, but which I'm retired now, but I'm still teaching, I'm still writing, and using my voice to try to convey my ideas to the world at large. But I'm trying to incorporate this expanded idea of music. And I love, by the way, your emphasis on the notion of voice, because that makes it very personal. Whether you're singing or speaking, God, I mean, you can...
Or writing.
The other day, or writing. Exactly.
Or setting intentions and thinking, capturing
exactly.
thoughts.
It has such a wide connotation, the notion of voice. It's like posture in a way. You could be standing in front of somebody in a way that speaks to them, or in a way that is vulgar and insensitive, right? I mean, our bodies are, as Nada Brahmananda taught me in that dream, our bodies are the ultimate musical instrument, and life is the ultimate field of music, where we can make music.
And he would probably say, Michael, I don't know if he would say that, but you know him better than I do, but he would probably say, with or without your finger that's not perfectly working, you can still play the flute. Even if it's three notes, right? Even if it's not the complete scale of the flute.
Well, I've been doing that lately, and then I finally decided that I know a doctor in town here that can straighten my finger out. I'm going to do it.
Nice.
But you're absolutely right. I was practicing on with my left hand in the higher register, with my flute. And by the way, I have a fantastic, beautiful Haynes flute. I don't know if you know anything about flutes. It's the Stradivarius version of the flute. Yeah,
nice.
And
nice.
I'm getting back. I'm going to get back to it. Oddly enough, I have an appointment on the 19th of this month to go to a doctor who's going to straighten my finger out. And what I find,
what I find so fascinating about voice. I mean, I'm a singer, but I'm also somebody who opens and heals a lot of voices, is that it's a personal journey, right? Opening our voices, opening the channel. And a lot of times people that end up opening their singing voice, they start writing differently, they start connecting more in flow, they are able to speak more confidently. But the fascinating thing is that the breath and the voice is connecting us all. Like we're having this conversation, across the ocean through voice, through vibration, through tuning into each other. And the voice is basically, I mean, if you're a musician, it's like we can sing in unison a tone. We can also, and then we're united in a certain frequency, but then we can also go into harmonics like the fifth or the third or the, I don't know, it doesn't matter, the seventh or whatever. And it's fascinating how we have a diversity and unity at the same time when we're in music and especially when we're singing together. And I find that fascinating. I find it also fascinating that the simple octave, many people don't know this, but if we have a simple octave, we have double the frequency, but we're in unison. It's the same, right?
Right.
So it's all this stuff where your beautiful book, which is very playful, and yet one comes across these dialogues or these sentences which do make us stop. For example, we call a house that is not, singing the words of God a cemetery. Or there's a moment in your book where you talk about rhythm and just the left and right brain coming together, right? I mean, it's bringing a heart-brain coherency where everyone has their app and they're, sitting there with their app, and their app is figuring out their breath. And basically you or Swaminatha would say maybe start a simple beat and start tuning in to that and listening, right? Listening. Are we really listening to each other? Are we really, are we listening to the frequency of the food that we're putting in our body? Are we listening to what the news is doing to our body, right? Before even deciding what we give back. Are we listening to, I mean, Alice Coltrane was also a great artist. John Coltrane or Alice Coltrane, while we're painting and absorbing those frequencies and then choosing how we share our journey with each other, right? Or with ourselves, right? And it's
absolutely.
It's
the voice is everything. It's the point of contact between souls. I mean, it's so easy to forget because our emotions. The other day, excuse me, I forget the context of it, but I raised my voice a little bit to someone who wasn't getting a point.
Yeah.
And she got all upset and completely destroyed. I could see she was really upset. So I said, I apologize. I didn't mean to have that effect, but it was my fault that I let my voice become a little expressive of an irritable emotion, which didn't help. I mean, and that's closely related to the need for control too, because it's so easy to forget and to get caught up in the sweeping moments of experience, and to lapse into a voice that is disruptive and inharmonious and harmful. So
that's true. That is true. I mean, I appreciate like you saying, maybe like I'm sorry I raised my voice, but I am always fascinated. Number one, if I go to other cultures, or when I watch animals, I had dogs for a long time, right? And they very quickly meet each other. If they like each other, they wag their tails. If they don't, they quickly and then suddenly they're relaxed. They're totally relaxed. So I think it has to do with, to be conscious. If we're, to be conscious, of course, I don't think we should throw our stuff out on other people, but it also has to do with we as listeners to be able to move with and absorb different intensities of energy, right? To be able to respond if somebody is, I don't know, to not always take it all so personally that we're paralyzed or, and that's what I learned from animals. I always am just fascinated or I have to say, because you were saying that your last name is Italian. Sometimes when you go to Italy, you have somebody screaming at the other side, like, what are you doing crossing the road? And then suddenly somebody else says, I'm crossing the road. And then they start laughing. And it just, it's not a big thing. It's called dynamics. It's called passion. And if you were in music and you know Beethoven or Rachmaninoff or Tchaikovsky or all these people, it's not all Satie. It's not all New Age music, and the paintings are not all watercolor flowers, right? Or and so I think, yes, as much as I think that we should be conscious, of course, and not throw our stuff at other people, at the same time, I do think that there's something beautiful about being expressive and allowing the energy to be in the tone, right, of what we're saying. Does it make sense? I'm trying to actually to protect you in that situation, because I do think that sometimes people are so tense. Instead of just saying, wow, you have a lot of passion for what you're saying, maybe I should tune in, maybe I should listen, or maybe this is the climax and now he's going to come down and resolve the chord, Yeah.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more about your emphasis on listening, the art of listening.
Yeah.
Because it is, it's so obvious, if you're even mildly self-observant or observant of the world around you, that people don't listen. I mean, it's a hard thing, because lots of them, or many folks, are just suffering inside for one reason or another. But it really does make a difference. I mean, I think the whole world could improve a whole lot, relationships, if we really learned how to listen. But the thing is, listening is more than just a process that takes place through the ear. It's through the mind and the heart and memories, and you have to be sensitive to feelings, or the range of feelings and the range of the way, what's lurking behind the voice. Before you can listen to it in a useful and helpful way, and like
also,
anything else,
I was going to say, and also, it takes practice, and also realize, I don't know your situation with this person, but to realize that the person standing in front of us, and again, I'm not talking about abusive behavior. I'm just talking about people maybe quickly raising their voice for whatever reason.
Right.
It can happen, and nobody's trying to hurt each other. I mean, and I think we're becoming we're like walking on eggshells sometimes. Everybody's worried about saying the wrong thing, being too loud, being too soft, being too this, being too that. And I think there's a beauty of feeling freer, that we can, and again, with respect to again, I'm not talking about abusive behavior here, but I really think, I guess because I have a very big voice, so I know what it feels like to be able to stretch that voice, to be able to belt and whisper. And if we want the intimacy with people, we have to realize that just like a good massage can go from soft to a little bit deeper, the voice has different colors. And it's okay. It's okay, right? It's okay if somebody's a little bit, as long as you feel there's a certain alignment with integrity, and again, it's not abusive, I think. I don't know. So anyway, that's I guess that's my thing on voice, because there's a lot of people that are resigned or held back. I work with a lot of people that have never found their voice, that feel afraid of living any kind of, they're living the emotion, but without the ability to express it in the voice. And what happens then is that we get really tense, because the voice is a natural flow. It's like your paintbrush, it's painting on your canvas. So if you have a strong emotion and you don't allow that to go out for that moment, well, I don't want you to have a heart attack or something, Anyway.
Yes, I think this is such an important point about voice, and about the ability to handle our emotions and express them, even in maybe sometimes a little extravagant or highly expressive ways, and not fear being misunderstood or perceived as hostile, just because you're more alive and more variegated in your manner of being and your manner of
Exactly.
expressing yourself. But a lot depends on the confidence you have in your partner, the person that you're with. I mean, the context is crucial.
Exactly. And
I
obviously,
mean,
you did a great thing. Is that when you realize that somebody is shrinking or doesn't perceive it the same way, is that we reach out and we say, "I'm sorry." But like I
Right.
said, I've learned a lot from the bird that's going overhead and screeching, or I've learned a lot from a dog that might be barking. That a lot of times, if we kind of just are in flow with all these rhythms, they're not going to put us off balance.
No.
Anyway. So let's get back to your book before we end this amazing, beautiful interview. I mean, first of all, everybody out there, go grab his book, because I think it's a lovely read. It's a great also gift for people that are lovers of music, or maybe into yoga, or of course, philosophy. What are some key takeaways or messages that you believe readers can expect to gain after they've dived into your book?
Well, the value of music itself, and what we've been discussing is something, and the relationship to health, for example, that I talk about. But there's something else in the latter part of the book. The first part of the book is all about Nada Brahmananda, and as I wrote it back in the late 1970s. But the conclusion of the book I wrote recently when I got a contract for it, and that's sort of my philosophical essay on transcendental music. And so there are things in that section that I think are very important that I want to talk about and write about in the future too. And one of them is that when I looked into the history of philosophies of music, I came across the stories of Pythagoras. And we all know who Pythagoras was. He was a mathematician who discovered the Pythagorean theorem. I'm not going to quote it. We all know that. But he was also the guy that discovered the musical tones and the mathematical basis of music. And so in the history of philosophy, Pythagoras and his community is a story about a group of individuals that tried to construct a philosophy of community and that involved both science and music. And what I tried to explore in that last 40 pages is the idea that maybe, you see, our modern concept of science is in quite contrast with the Pythagorean model. The idea of using science and technology to create weapons of mass destruction, and to serve the interests of an unmitigated consumerism, a consumerism which is not healthy for the human being or for the environment, which we all know about. I'm not going to go mentioning that right now, but that Pythagoras, and with his contemporary follower, Wolfgang Pauli, who was a guy that refused to participate in the construction of the atomic bomb, by the way. He was friends with Einstein. And by the way, Einstein regretted it after he did contribute, along with Oppenheimer. Those two guys were crucial figures in creating the atomic bomb. They regretted it. Pauli refused. And what I'm talking about now in that part of the book that interests me a great deal is really a critique of science. What we need is a new Pythagorean model of science that is about harmony and not about the creation of technologies that are going to destroy other human beings, efficiently and massively, like 40,000 human beings dead in one instant with the two bombs that we dropped back in the days of the Second World War. That's a different science. And I'm interested, and this is one of my passions, to think about revising our concept of science in such a way that it is about enhancing and bringing together humanity, and about health, not just about profit. And it's a gigantic idea, which an idealistic fantasy. But
creating
still,
a sound world, right? Creating a sound world, which is what I
really
say: sound mind, sound body.
Good. Good.
Michael, I have to unfortunately stop you here because we're coming to the end of this show. And as you see, and all you beautiful listeners out there, there's so much to dive into. There's so much to talk about. I want to thank you for coming on to Voice Rising and sharing your insights and your wisdom. And I'm curious now to go and see your paintings, right? That are there. And take care.
Well, thank you.
Right?
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure and my honor. Okay. Perhaps we can stay in touch. Okay.
Of course.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye now.